Well, that's awkward. 3, 2...
Credete alle favole.
One. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 41 of the Showerpodcast, the podcast where I'm in my shower and you do you. I'm your host, Chip, and I'm very sorry for clickbaiting you. I will explain everything, but give me a moment. So, how did we end up with that title and, let's say, that more special intro? So, today, this Monday, a very, let's say, how could I classify it? Because that's not very popular. I can say popular. And what else? Also, unfortunately, very driving personality called Fabrizio Corona dropped, let's say, another episode of his new series called Falsissimo, where he, let's say, presents to the whole country the ins and outs and all the scoops of some VIPs. Now, the reason why I'm dropping also this episode at that moment is that I'll try to see if by some chance anybody will land here and not there. Now, of course, it's more an experiment, as I said, so you'll have to forgive me for that. I'm really not into clickbait, and let's say I get a bit, triggered myself when I receive it when I'm on YouTube. But at the same time, it's part of the job. It happens also to myself that through clickbait, I then start to watch stuff that I'm interested in. So there is a bit of a mix. If I, let's say, would have the chance to do this full time, I would definitely use those kind of strategies. But again, for myself, it's just having the thumbnail somewhere in the video. It's good enough for me right now. So I still think about the intro. If you're on Spotify, I should have said it maybe earlier, but it's very worth to watch it with the video. So, but as the Showerpodcast, let's say, has built up its reputation, or at least I have very much enjoyed, let's say, dealing and discussing more not serious topics, but more or less topics that open a discussion. And I really hope that one day any of you will pick up anything that I said and will build up on it, be either with another friend, let's say, twisting it with their own take, or in general. Let's say that the goal, something that I would really like, is that to have for one of the episodes the episodes of this year, to have a discussion in the comments. And again, I'm also, let's say, I'm understanding that this kind of episode and this kind of clickbait will be relatable only to Italian viewers. But trust me that if you're not Italian and you're listening to this and you are interested into understanding what is happening, you're gonna be satisfied. Like, there is so much to talk about. And I will also give you a take that I've not developed, but that I've discussed myself with some of my friends the other day, where we kind of got to the conclusion that the kind of information and the news that you end up hearing so much about in a specific country really tell a lot about the country itself. Let me expand. So with the previous episode of this Fabrizio Corona guy, where he, let's say, showed the whole country that one of the most Instagrammable and lovely couples, families of the country that really made billions, like they had a full industry based on that, on the fact that they had this perfect family, where the most, not hideous, but they had several affairs, really, I don't really want to get into it because I'm also still confused, and there was so much stuff being hidden, so many lies, so many cover up stories. It was a mess. And the fact that not only, let's say, it shows, as always, the fact that socials are not to be believed in, I know that, that, everybody kind of knows that, but sometimes we still forget. And, you see some stuff and you're like, damn, it happened to me, and it happened, I'm sure, to so many of you, that you thought, man, I wish I had that family. I wish I had that life. Even though it's fake, even if you know that they are rich, they have problems, whatever it is, you still kind of fantasized and said, you know what, I would still like to have that in my life. And that is absolutely, let's say, horrendous, because then you see the reality of it and you're like, man, what was I thinking? I don't want that, and nobody wants that. And yet it happens. And the second thing, and the most important one that I really, I want to get you thinking about, and again, feel free to let me know in the comment if you think differently, but it made so many headlines, like the news, like the regional news, the nationwide news discussed about that, instead of, speaking of so many other topics that are way more important for the whole country, that it got me thinking. I was like, man, is this really what drives people? And there was also, besides this thing that was huge, there was also another one where, again, in the influencer world, there was a Neapolitan influencer that said that she was gonna go have a ski weekend in a specific city. And during that day, thousands and thousands and thousands, magnitudes, if, let's say, on a normal day the tourists were 10 for that city, the tourists became 10,000. So it was absolutely unbearable. And let's say they didn't necessarily treat the city the best way. And this wasn't necessarily so much the problem of the people that were there. Of course, there were lots of them that were irresponsible, but also the whole ecosystem could not handle that. It again made headlines, and it was something that, again, showed me that as much as one tries, and as much as one tries to stay in its bubble, keeping himself informed and going through all the let's say, all the hoops to get away from that stuff, even the main medias and all the things that, let's say, you consider or you should consider as responsible and let's say institutional, so something that you should be able to trust, they end up talking about that stuff because they know that people want to know about those things. And this is something that, again, I have seen only in Italy, but it's also true that it is my real only bubble of information. But at the same time, I doubt, and I haven't talked to friends or people that I know that do and have these kind of topics and these kind of situations, be it in Germany, France, Switzerland. It just doesn't happen. Even in Romania, where we have our own set of problems, and again, it's nowhere better, but the kind of headlines that are shown are at least not stemming from the social aspect and environment. And again, it could be also because there isn't such a big bubble to, let's say, go after. So there's also always the reward that you get, from getting into those realities. And I do believe that in Italy, there is a lot to gain, from being in this environment, the whole media environment. And that's also because why this guy, Fabrizio Corona, made, let's say, such a fortune throughout his life, because he always went for all the scoops. And he was sort of a paparazzi, or at least the most known one, and most, let's say, hated and feared one, because he really was able to get out stuff that they really didn't want to show to the world. And I do believe, it's symptomatic, and it shows what a country kind of looks like from the inside, and what are the things that people care about. And I don't know how you fix that, The only place where I've seen this happening, but again, we're really comparing apples and oranges, is in the US. But the problem is that the US is a continent, like it's huge. Like compared to Italy, it's something unimaginable. So it's normal that in that size, at some point, the things that you're gonna hear about are the elections, the politics, and also all the, let's say, stories and let's say news that you hear about celebrities, people in social media. But because they are also one of the best at using it. So as I said before, you have something to gain if you get information and news from that aspect. And at the same time, again, there is such a huge amount of people that whatever your niche is, if you are into any kind of topic and if you're passionate about anything and you see it in socials, most likely there's going to be a huge American influencer that does it, therefore creating, let's say, headlines and news. So, if you are from any country, maybe I've seen that most of you are also from the UK, for example, let me know. People are they interested so much in social media, and specifically, are social media news and headlines, let's say, do they reach the BBC or I don't know what's the news that are presented by the state, but the important ones. Are we really, or just there is a smokescreen in front of us that we care only about these things, or are there countries that still try to dignify a bit what news are and let's say what information really is? And I have a very bad feeling because even if you don't have to look at, let's say, at the TV, even if you just read journals or newspapers, what makes clicks and what makes headlines, what sells, are those informations, like everything that's from social media, all fake news, or again, stuff that we really shouldn't be caring about. And we should use that space to discuss about, or at least make information and let people know about other topics that, let's say, we would benefit way more if, let's say, we started caring about them. But the problem is that it's so hard to get to that information. You have to be, you really need to have the drive and the need to know about those things to really learn them in a, let's say, more structured way. So yeah, that's also one of the reasons why I never got into either politics or more serious topics, because it's such a mess to get this kind of information that the only way that I do it is that I rely nowadays in, let's say, other influencers that deal with this kind of topics and, let's say, give me the information that I trust from them. And therefore, if, let's say, I accept 80% and the ones that I don't really trust, I then go search for myself. But yeah, it's rough. Having said that, this was episode 41, special episode of the Showerpodcast. Thank you very much for listening and see you at the next one.
Tortino conosce Fabrizio Corona. Si è fidanzato con uno del circolino. Tortino